right. Here is my audience. Hello, Lona, Eunice, Normie, Pat, Russ, Doris, there she is, Wayne, who's also backing this up, Jimmy and Paige, Grandma Sue, Suzanne, and John. All right. Well, thanks for being here today to help me. This speech is a little bit about myself, and most of you have known me for years, and most of my adult life I have worked, but none of you that are here knew me when I was younger, when I was in school or when I started working. So I thought I would share with you today a little bit of a story to explain kind of the way I turned out the way I am today. Most of you, I think, and none of you know me from work, but we've all worked on projects together. And you know what I'm like. I'm kind of organized, and I want things to be a certain way. I'm particular. And so part of that came from when I was little and my parents. They wanted me to do well, and they stressed that to me. So I was always a person in school that wanted to get a good grade. I always tried to succeed for the teacher. And when I went into my working life, that kind of followed me along. Well, this week I started a new job, and I wasn't worried about my new job. I have all the skills to do it. I'm just learning the system and those little things that you need to know that you can apply yourself to. But it made me think back to when I first started working. And I went to work for a man that was how some people might describe as a hard man, or a man that might be difficult to work for, demanding. And people warned me when I went to work for him, he has a temper. He's not nice to his employees. So I was a little bit scared when I went to work for him. But I learned a lot, and one of the first things that I did when I started my job is every day I had to go, first thing, we had an old Dodge Charger. Remember those? And I drove the old silver Dodge Charger down to the post office, got the mail. And then I would separate it. And all of his mail I would set on a pile in his office. And all the bills, for the other lady in the office, she would get the bills. And I would get these little white envelopes with our business address, and they would have checks in them. Because the business that I worked for managed real estate property, and we also did construction and built properties. We had a lot of apartments, and all these checks would come in the mail. So those would be my envelopes, and that would be what I would do. Well, after I'd worked there almost a year, my boss and his wife, who also worked in the office, decided they would go out of state and visit the grandkids for Christmas. So they left me alone for a week. And it was just this kind of day, dreary, icky day. And I was in the office by myself, and I was getting every day in the mail the newspaper, the Wall Street Journal, and it was like I had a pile. I had a pile of junk mail, I had a pile of catalogs and flyers and mail from my boss and bills, and all these little white envelopes that I would make for the bank deposit. So I was there a day, and in comes UPS man. Now back in those days, you didn't get a lot of boxes from the UPS man, and everything that we had really got delivered to the construction site. But we had this box. And I put it on the table with all this growing mountain of mail, and I thought, I should open that box. Something told me that I needed to open that box, but I couldn't. And I knew I shouldn't, because it had my boss's name on it. And way back, the first month I'd worked for him, I'd gotten one of my little rent checks. and his name was Harold. We will only use first names, by the way, in this story. His name was Harold, and this envelope said, "Attention, Harold." But I knew there was a rent check in it, and maybe I wasn't supposed to open it, but I wanted to get the bank deposit done, so I opened it up and slipped out the check and put it with his mail. Well, that was the first day that I saw what everybody had told me about. He came to work and he looked at his mail, and his mail was open. Now, I hadn't read the letter that was in there. I gave it to him. It was his. But he called me in his office. And he said, "Carol, this envelope had my name on it. Why did you open it?" And I said, "I'm sorry. I just wanted to get the rent check out of it. I don't want you to ever open my mail again." All right. And I never did. So now let's fast forward, and we're 9 months later, and I get this box that I have a bad feeling about, a really bad feeling about, that it needs to be opened. But all it has is his name on it. So I didn't open it. And then it sat there all week for days, and I looked at it, and I wanted to open it so badly because I was worried about it. Not that I was snoopy, I was worried. So, but I left for the Christmas holiday, box on the table. Okay, the whole week was gloomy, and this box just drug me down. So next week I come back from Christmas, and it's sunny and bright, and it looks like everything's going to be great. And everybody's back at the office, and we're all happy, you know. And boss's wife comes down to go to work, and she says, "Carol, do you remember that box that was sitting there on the table?" And I said, "Yes." And she was very nonchalant, and she said, "Well, that was from one of our suppliers, our construction suppliers, and I hate to tell you, but there was a smoked turkey in that box." And it had sat there for a week, and it was ruined, and we had to throw it out. And I thought, uh-oh. And I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach. She wasn't upset, but what's Harold going to say when he gets here? And I have to go back. I left a little bit out of my story that the day that he got angry with me about the rent check, later on that day, that letter landed on my desk with a letter to reply to the woman. And all it was about was that it was from an apartment manager, and one of the tenants was leaving the building, and she just wanted to advertise, tell him she was going to advertise for space. That's all it was. But I still got yelled about it, and then that kind of made me angry. So I had this fear, and then I had this anger. Well, 10 minutes later, he comes bursting into the office, and we go, and I think he's not going to say anything about it at all. And he puts his hand on the doorknob, and he grabs some of his pile of mail, and he says, "Carol, did Lois tell you about the turkey in the box?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Why didn't you open that up?" And so I looked right at him, and I said, "The box was addressed to you, and I am not to open your personal mail." And he stood there, and he looked at me, and I knew he wanted to say something, and he couldn't. There was nothing he could say. And now, in retrospect, I look back on that day, and I think, after that, he treated me a little bit differently. I don't ever remember being yelled at again. And if I would bring a suggestion to him, he would always listen to me. And I think I earned a little bit of respect that day. But I also had a lot of respect for him. And he wasn't really a harsh man. He was smart, and he was intelligent. And I learned a lot from that job before I moved here to meet all of you. And that's part of what makes me the way I am today. So now you know a little bit about my past. So thanks.
Okay.
All right.